Your attention is being stolen. Every single second of every single day, billion-dollar companies are waging war on your ability to focus. They are using algorithms designed by the smartest engineers in the world to hijack your attention, fragment your consciousness, and turn you into a distracted, scattered version of yourself. And they are winning. You pick up your phone to check one thing, and suddenly 20 minutes have disappeared. You sit down to work on something important, and within 5 minutes, you are clicking through tabs, scrolling through feeds, checking messages that do not matter. You start your day with clear intentions, and by noon, you have accomplished nothing meaningful because your attention has been sliced into 1,000 pieces. This is not a character flaw. This is not laziness. This is not a lack of willpower. This is the predictable result of living in an attention economy that profits from your distraction. But here is what the top 1% of high performers know that you do not. Focus is not something you have. Focus is something you build. It is a skill that can be trained, strengthened, and mastered just like physical fitness. And once you master it, you gain access to levels of productivity, achievement, and fulfillment that distracted people cannot even imagine. The difference between people who accomplish extraordinary things and people who constantly feel busy but never make real progress is not talent, intelligence, or resources. It is the ability to direct sustained attention toward what actually matters. Deep focus is the most valuable skill in the modern economy, and it is becoming rarer by the day, which means if you can develop it, you will have an almost unfair advantage over everyone who remains trapped in shallow distraction. By the time you finish this audiobook, you will understand exactly how your attention system works, why it fails so consistently, and most importantly, how to rebuild it from the ground up. You will learn the neuroscience of focus, the psychology of distraction, and the practical systems that elite performers use to maintain concentration in a world designed to scatter it. You will discover why everything you have been told about focus and productivity is wrong, and what actually works based on decades of research and real-world testing. This is not about trying harder. This is not about guilt or shame or forcing yourself to be different. This is about understanding the mechanisms that control your attention and learning to work with your brain instead of against it. This is about building the kind of unshakable focus that allows you to do in 4 hours what most people cannot accomplish in 4 days. Chapter 1: The Attention Crisis Nobody is Talking About. We are living through the greatest attention crisis in human history, and most people do not even realize it is happening. They think they just need to try harder, be more disciplined, or find better time management techniques. They have no idea that their brains are being systematically rewired by technologies specifically designed to destroy their capacity for sustained focus. Let me show you exactly what is happening to your brain right now. Every time you check your phone, every time you switch between tasks, every time you allow an interruption to break your concentration, you are training your brain to be more distractible. You are literally creating neural pathways that make distraction easier and focus harder. Your brain is adapting to an environment of constant stimulation and losing its ability to handle extended periods of concentration. The average person now checks their phone over 150 times per day. That means every 6 to 7 minutes while awake, your attention is being interrupted by a device. But it gets worse. Research shows that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain deep focus after an interruption. Think about the mathematics of this. If you are being interrupted every 6 minutes, but need 23 minutes to recover full focus, you never actually achieve deep concentration. You spend your entire day in a state of partial attention, shallow processing, and cognitive fragmentation. You are operating at maybe 20 to 30% of your actual cognitive capacity, and you have become so accustomed to this diminished state that you think it is normal. This is why you feel mentally exhausted at the end of the day, even though you did not accomplish anything meaningful. Shallow attention is cognitively expensive. Your brain burns enormous amounts of energy constantly switching contexts and trying to maintain partial attention on multiple things. Deep focus, paradoxically, is less exhausting because your brain can enter a state of flow where cognitive processes become efficient and automatic. The technology companies know this. They have teams of addiction specialists, behavioral psychologists, and neuroscientists working to make their products as attention-grabbing as possible. They use variable reward schedules, the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive, to keep you checking your feeds. They use social validation mechanisms to trigger dopamine responses in your brain. They use artificial urgency to make you feel like you need to respond immediately to things that do not actually matter. And it is working. The average American now spends over 7 hours per day on screens, and that number continues to increase every year. Young people spend even more time, often exceeding 10 hours per day. This is not leisure time. This is not relaxation. This is cognitive fragmentation that is destroying their ability to think deeply, learn effectively, and create meaningful work. The educational system is seeing the consequences. Teachers report that students have increasingly short attention spans and struggle to engage with material that requires sustained concentration. Employers are seeing it too. Workers seem busy all day, but produce surprisingly little actual output. The work that gets done is often shallow, error-prone, and requires extensive revision. But the cost goes far beyond productivity metrics. The inability to focus deeply is robbing people of their capacity for meaningful experiences. You cannot have deep conversations when you are constantly checking your phone. You cannot appreciate art, nature, or beauty when your mind is fragmented. You cannot solve complex problems when you are stuck in shallow thinking mode. You cannot experience flow states when you are constantly interrupting yourself. The research on this is clear and alarming. Studies show that heavy multitaskers, people who regularly split their attention between multiple streams of information, actually perform worse at multitasking than people who focus on one thing at a time. Their brains become less efficient at filtering out irrelevant information, less capable of holding information in working memory, and less able to switch between tasks effectively. Even more concerning, brain imaging studies show that constant distraction and multitasking actually change brain structure. The density of gray matter in the anterior cingulate cortex, a region responsible for cognitive and emotional control, decreases in people who engage in heavy media multitasking. Your brain is physically adapting to distraction by reducing the neural infrastructure needed for focus and self-control. The younger generation is growing up in this environment, which means they are developing brains that are fundamentally different from previous generations. They have never experienced what it feels like to focus deeply for extended periods. They do not know what their minds are capable of when properly directed. They think their scattered, anxious, distracted state is just how consciousness feels. The financial cost of this attention crisis is staggering. Businesses lose an estimated $650 billion per year to workplace distractions and the resulting productivity losses. But this number does not capture the innovation that never happens, the problems that never get solved, the breakthroughs that never occur because people cannot maintain the sustained focus required for deep creative work. The personal cost is even higher, but harder to quantify. How many books never get written because aspiring authors cannot maintain focus long enough to complete them? How many businesses never get started because entrepreneurs cannot concentrate long enough to develop their ideas? How many relationships deteriorate because people cannot give each other undivided attention? How many people go through their entire lives without ever experiencing what they are truly capable of because they never develop the ability to focus deeply? The cruel irony is that we have more access to information, tools, and opportunities than any generation in history, but we lack the attentional capacity to take advantage of them. We are like people dying of thirst while drowning in an ocean. The resources are there, but we cannot focus long enough to use them effectively. Most people blame themselves for this problem. They think they just need more discipline or better time management. They buy productivity apps, try new organizational systems, and make resolutions to be more focused. But these approaches fail because they do not address the root cause. Your attention system is not broken because you are weak or lazy. It is broken because it has been systematically hijacked by an environment that profits from your distraction. Understanding this is the first step toward reclaiming your focus. You are not fighting against your own inadequacy. You are fighting against some of the most sophisticated behavioral engineering ever created. This is not a fair fight, and you should not expect to win it through willpower alone. You need strategy, systems, and a deep understanding of how attention actually works. The good news is that your brain is plastic. The neural changes caused by chronic distraction can be reversed. The attentional capacity you have lost can be rebuilt. The deep focus abilities that seem impossible right now can be developed through proper training. But this requires understanding what you are up against and making fundamental changes to how you structure your life, your environment, and your relationship with technology. This is not about abandoning modern tools or living like a monk. This is about using technology intentionally instead of being used by it. This is about creating environments that support focus instead of destroying it. This is about training your brain to concentrate deeply instead of letting it adapt to constant distraction. Chapter 2: The Neuroscience of Attention and Why Willpower Always Fails. If you want to master focus, you first need to understand how your attention system actually works. Most people have completely wrong ideas about attention, which is why their efforts to improve focus consistently fail. They think attention is like a muscle that just needs to be strengthened through effort, or they think it is a resource that gets depleted throughout the day. Both of these models are incomplete and misleading. Your brain has 3 distinct attention systems, and understanding how they work together is crucial for developing real focus. The first system is called the alerting network. This is the system that makes you aware that something requires attention. It is what makes you notice when your phone buzzes, when someone says your name, or when something unexpected happens in your environment. This system is fast, automatic, and very difficult to control consciously. The alerting network evolved to detect threats and opportunities in your environment. When your ancestors heard a branch snap in the forest, their alerting network immediately directed attention toward that sound because it might signal danger. This system kept humans alive for hundreds of thousands of years, but in the modern world, it is being weaponized against you. Every notification, every email alert, every flashing advertisement is designed to trigger your alerting network and hijack your attention. The second system is the orienting network. This determines which specific aspects of your environment receive detailed processing. When the alerting network says something requires attention, the orienting network decides what exactly to focus on and filters out everything else. This is the system that allows you to focus on a conversation in a noisy room or find a specific item in a cluttered space. The orienting network is much more controllable than the alerting network, but it still operates largely automatically based on what your brain has learned is important or rewarding. The third system is the executive network. This is the most advanced attention system, and what most people actually mean when they talk about focus. The executive network is responsible for maintaining attention on task-relevant information, ignoring distractions, and switching attention when appropriate. This system is located primarily in your prefrontal cortex and is what allows you to pursue long-term goals, even when more immediately rewarding distractions are available. Here is the critical insight that changes everything. These three networks do not work in isolation. They are constantly interacting, often in ways that undermine your intentions. Your executive network might be trying to maintain focus on important work, but your alerting network is constantly scanning for more interesting stimuli. Every time something triggers your alerting network, it temporarily hijacks your orienting network, which interrupts the executive network. This is why willpower-based approaches to focus fail so consistently. You are trying to use your executive network to overpower your alerting and orienting networks. But this creates constant cognitive conflict that is exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. It is like trying to drive a car with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. You can do it for a while, but you will burn out quickly and you will not get very far. The smarter approach is to work with all three attention systems, instead of trying to force them into alignment through willpower. This means structuring your environment to minimize triggers for your alerting network, training your orienting network to automatically focus on task-relevant information, and reserving your executive network for the occasional need to redirect attention rather than constant attentional warfare. Let me explain how these systems actually function at the neurological level. Your alerting network is controlled primarily by norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter that increases arousal and alertness. When something in your environment triggers this system, norepinephrine floods your brain and creates a state of heightened awareness. This feels like a small burst of energy or interest, which is why checking your phone or clicking on a notification provides a tiny hit of stimulation. The problem is that this arousal response is incompatible with the neural state required for deep focus. Deep focus requires your brain to enter what neuroscientists call a task-positive network, where regions involved in goal-directed behavior are highly active and regions involved in mind-wandering and external monitoring are suppressed. Every time your alerting network fires, It disrupts this state and forces your brain to reestablish the neural conditions for deep work. Your orienting network is controlled by a complex interaction between your parietal cortex, which processes sensory information, and your frontal cortex, which applies top-down goals to guide attention. This system is highly trainable, which is both good news and bad news. The good news is that you can train your orienting network to automatically focus on productive information. The bad news is that if you spend most of your time consuming shallow, distracting content, you are training your orienting network to seek out exactly those types of stimuli. This is why people who spend hours on social media find it increasingly difficult to focus on anything that is not rapidly changing and immediately rewarding. They have literally trained their orienting network to find sustained focus boring and aversive. Their brains have adapted to expect constant novelty and stimulation, which makes deep work feel unpleasant by comparison. The executive network is the most energy-intensive of the three attention systems. It requires significant glucose and oxygen to function effectively, and its capacity is genuinely limited throughout the day. This is where the idea of willpower depletion comes from, and it is partially true. Your executive network does become less effective when it has been heavily used, when you are tired, when your blood sugar is low, or when you are stressed. But here is what most people miss. The reason your executive network gets depleted so quickly is not because you are using it for deep work. It is because you are using it to constantly fight against your alerting and orienting networks. Every time you resist checking your phone, every time you force yourself to ignore a distraction, every time you manually redirect your wandering attention, you are burning executive network resources. If you spend all day in this state of attentional conflict, your executive network will be exhausted by noon. This is why people who work in highly distracting environments report feeling mentally drained even when they did not accomplish much actual work. They spent all their cognitive energy on internal attentional warfare instead of on productive tasks. The solution is not to strengthen your executive network through more willpower training. The solution is to structure your life so your executive network rarely needs to intervene because your alerting and orienting networks are already aligned with your goals. This is the fundamental principle of what I call environmental focus design. Instead of trying to overcome a distracting environment through mental effort, you create an environment where focus is the path of least resistance. Another crucial aspect of attention neuroscience is understanding the difference between top-down and bottom-up attention. Top-down attention is goal-directed and voluntary. It is when you decide to focus on something specific because it aligns with your intentions. Bottom-up attention is stimulus-driven and involuntary. It is when something in your environment captures your attention automatically. Evolution heavily favored bottom-up attention because immediate threats and opportunities required automatic responses. If your ancestor had to consciously decide whether to pay attention to the rustling in the bushes or continue gathering berries, they would not have survived long enough to become your ancestor. But in the modern world, bottom-up attention is constantly being exploited by stimuli that are designed to capture attention but do not actually require a response. The neuroscience reveals why this is so difficult to overcome. Bottom-up attention activates faster, uses less energy, and feels more compelling than top-down attention. When your phone buzzes, The bottom-up system instantly captures your attention and creates a powerful impulse to respond. Overriding this impulse with top-down attention requires significant effort and creates that feeling of internal conflict. The more often you are exposed to attention-grabbing stimuli, the stronger these bottom-up responses become. Your brain learns that phones buzzing, notifications appearing, and new information arriving are important events that require immediate attention. These become automatic responses that bypass conscious awareness entirely. This is why people check their phones even when they consciously do not want to. The bottom-up system is running the show, and the top-down system is just rationalizing the behavior after the fact. Understanding dopamine is also critical for mastering focus. Dopamine is often called the pleasure neurotransmitter, but this is misleading. Dopamine is actually about anticipation and motivation. It is released not when you get a reward, but when you anticipate getting a reward. This is why checking your phone is so addictive, even when the actual content is usually disappointing. The possibility of finding something interesting triggers dopamine release, which creates a craving to check. Social media and other digital platforms have been optimized to exploit this mechanism. They use variable reward schedules, meaning sometimes you get something interesting and sometimes you do not, which creates the strongest possible dopamine response. This is the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Your brain learns that checking might produce a reward, so it generates constant cravings to check again. The problem is that these dopamine spikes actually reduce your ability to focus. When your brain is in a state of anticipating potential rewards from your phone or other distractions, it cannot fully engage with work that requires sustained attention. You are constantly in a state of partial attention, with part of your brain monitoring for more interesting stimuli. Breaking this cycle requires understanding that you cannot outthink or outmuscle your neurochemistry. You need to work with these systems by creating environments and habits that align your neurochemical drives with your actual goals instead of fighting against them constantly. Chapter 3. The 3 types of focus and why you need all of them. Most people think focus is a single ability, but this oversimplification is why so many focus improvement strategies fail. There are actually 3 fundamentally different types of focus, each requiring different neural systems, each serving different purposes, and each needing specific training approaches. Understanding these distinctions is crucial for developing comprehensive focus mastery. The first type is sustained attention. This is your ability to maintain focus on a single task or stream of information for extended periods without getting distracted or mentally fatigued. Sustained attention is what allows you to read a book for hours, work on a project from start to finish, or have a long conversation without your mind wandering. This is probably what most people imagine when they think about focus. Sustained attention requires your brain to maintain active goal representations in your prefrontal cortex while suppressing competing information and irrelevant stimuli. It is metabolically expensive, which is why it feels effortful and why you cannot maintain it indefinitely. But with proper training, you can dramatically extend how long you can sustain focus before experiencing mental fatigue. Most people in the modern world have severely underdeveloped sustained attention. They cannot focus on anything for more than a few minutes without feeling the urge to check their phone, switch tasks, or seek some form of stimulation. This is not because sustained attention is impossible. It is because they have never trained this capacity, and they have spent years training the opposite, constantly switching attention and seeking novelty. The second type is selective attention. This is your ability to focus on relevant information while ignoring irrelevant information in your environment. Selective attention is what allows you to have a conversation in a noisy restaurant, work effectively despite activity around you, or find specific information in a complex document. This ability depends on your brain's capacity to filter competing inputs and amplify task-relevant signals. Selective attention is not the same as sustained attention. You can have strong, sustained attention, but weak selective attention, which means you can focus well in quiet environments, but struggle when there are distractions. Conversely, you might have strong selective attention, but weak sustained attention, meaning you can handle distractions, but cannot maintain focus for extended periods. The modern environment has created strange patterns in selective attention development. Many people have adapted to work in highly distracting environments by developing strong selective attention for certain types of distractions. They can filter out background conversations or music relatively easily, but they have developed almost no selective attention for digital distractions. The moment their phone buzzes or a notification appears, their selective attention completely fails. This is because digital distractions have been specifically engineered to bypass selective attention mechanisms. They exploit the bottom-up attention systems that are designed to override filtering and demand immediate processing. You cannot develop selective attention for these types of stimuli. You have to eliminate them from your environment entirely. The third type is alternating attention. This is your ability to flexibly switch focus between different tasks or types of information when appropriate. Alternating attention is what allows you to have a complex conversation where topics change, work on projects that require different types of thinking, or respond to genuinely important interruptions without completely derailing your focus. Alternating attention is often confused with multitasking, but they are completely different. Multitasking, trying to focus on multiple things simultaneously, is neurologically impossible for complex cognitive tasks. What people call multitasking is actually rapid task switching, and it is extremely inefficient. Your brain can only genuinely focus on one complex task at a time. Alternating attention is about being able to switch between tasks efficiently when switching is necessary or beneficial, not about trying to do multiple things at once. People with strong alternating attention can shift between different projects throughout the day without losing significant time to context switching. People with weak alternating attention get completely derailed by any interruption and require extensive time to regain focus after switching tasks. Here is what most people get wrong. They try to improve focus as a general ability without recognizing that these three types require different training approaches and serve different purposes. You cannot become an attention master by only developing one type while neglecting the others. Sustained attention without selective attention means you need perfectly quiet, distraction-free environments to focus, which is often impossible in real-world situations. You become fragile and unable to handle normal working conditions. Selective attention without sustained attention means you can work in noisy environments, but only for brief periods. You can filter distractions, but you cannot maintain focus long enough to accomplish deep work. You end up being busy all day, but never achieving significant results. Alternating attention without sustained attention creates the pattern of constant task switching that characterizes most modern workers. You can shift between different activities easily, but you never go deep enough on anything to produce meaningful output. You stay perpetually in shallow work mode. The goal is to develop all three types of focus to high levels. This creates true attention mastery, where you can focus deeply for extended periods, maintain that focus even in imperfect environments, and efficiently switch between different types of work when necessary. Building sustained attention requires extended practice sessions where you focus on a single demanding task without any interruptions or distractions. You need to regularly create completely distraction-free environments and work for progressively longer periods. Start with whatever duration you can currently handle, even if it is just 15 or 20 minutes, and gradually extend it over weeks and months. The key is consistency and progressive overload, just like physical training. Building selective attention requires practicing focus in increasingly distracting environments, but in a controlled way. You do not start by trying to work in a chaotic environment. You start in quiet spaces and gradually introduce controlled distractions while maintaining focus. This trains your brain to strengthen its filtering mechanisms and maintain task-relevant processing despite competing inputs. Building alternating attention requires practicing intentional task switching rather than reactive task switching. You deliberately move between different types of work on a planned schedule rather than switching whenever you feel like it or whenever something grabs your attention. This trains your brain to switch efficiently while maintaining control rather than being jerked around by every stimulus. Most people never develop strong focus because they practice all the wrong behaviors. They constantly switch between tasks in response to whatever seems most interesting or urgent in the moment. They work in highly distracting environments without taking steps to improve their selective attention. They never challenge themselves to sustain focus for extended periods. They are training weakness instead of strength. Understanding these three types of focus also helps you diagnose your specific attention weaknesses. Pay attention to which situations cause you the most difficulty. Do you struggle to maintain focus even in perfect conditions? That is a sustained attention problem. Can you focus well in quiet spaces, but fall apart when there are distractions? That is a selective attention problem. Do interruptions completely destroy your productivity for hours afterward? That is an alternating attention problem. Once you identify your specific weaknesses, you can target your training to address them directly instead of using generic focus advice that might not match your actual needs. Chapter 4: Environmental Design for Effortless Focus. The single biggest mistake people make when trying to improve focus is relying on willpower and self-discipline while ignoring their environment. They try to focus an environment specifically designed to destroy focus, then blame themselves when they fail. This is like trying to lose weight while keeping your kitchen stocked with junk food and expecting willpower to save you. It does not work because you are fighting against your environment instead of using it to support your goals. Environmental design for focus is based on a simple principle: make focused work the path of least resistance and distraction the path of most resistance. Instead of constantly using willpower to resist distractions, you structure your environment so that distraction requires effort while focus happens naturally. This approach works because it aligns with how your attention system actually functions rather than fighting against it. Let me break down the key elements of focus-optimized environments. First is elimination of attention triggers. Every object, device, or element in your environment that can trigger your alerting network is a potential focus destroyer. Your phone is the most obvious culprit. Even when silenced, even when face down, even when you are not actively using it, the mere presence of your phone reduces your cognitive capacity. Research demonstrates this clearly. In studies where people complete cognitive tasks, those who have their phones in the same room, even powered off, perform significantly worse than those whose phones are in another room. The explanation is fascinating. Part of your executive network is constantly allocated to the task of not checking your phone. You are using mental resources to resist the phone even when you are not consciously thinking about it. Remove the phone from your environment entirely, and those resources become available for productive work. But phones are just the beginning. Every notification-capable device, every browser tab, every visible distraction in your peripheral vision is claiming a small allocation of your attention. Individually, these costs seem trivial. Collectively, they add up to massive reductions in your available cognitive capacity. The solution is radical elimination. When you are doing deep work, every potential distraction must be removed from your environment or rendered completely inaccessible. Phone in another room. Computer in single application mode with all notifications disabled. Internet connection severed if not required for the task. Email closed. Messaging apps quit entirely. Door closed. People who protest that they need access to these tools for their work are almost always wrong. What you actually need is specific, scheduled access to these tools, not constant availability. The work that requires focus, the work that actually creates value, can almost always be done without real-time connectivity. The second element is creation of focus cues. Your brain is an association-making machine. It learns to associate specific environments with specific mental states. If you always check social media in your bedroom, your brain learns that bedroom equals distraction mode. If you try to focus in that same space, you are fighting against established associations. The solution is to create specific environments or environmental configurations that your brain learns to associate with deep focus. This could be a particular location, a specific time of day, a certain configuration of your workspace, or even something as simple as wearing particular clothing or listening to particular music when doing focused work. The key is consistency. You need to reliably use these focus cues only for deep work, never for distraction. Over time, simply entering this environment or activating these cues will shift your brain into focus mode with minimal effort. This is the principle behind having a dedicated office space, but you can apply it much more broadly. You can create focus cues using music, particular beverages, specific lighting, environmental scents, or any other sensory elements that can be consistently paired with focused work. The third element is optimization for single tasking. Most modern work environments are designed to facilitate multitasking and constant connectivity. Multiple monitors showing different information streams. Persistent notification systems. Open office layouts where interruptions are constant. These environments make focused work nearly impossible, and shallow work feel productive. A focus-optimized environment does the opposite. It constrains your options and eliminates the ability to task switch easily. Single monitor or single window. No communication tools active. Physical or temporal barriers that prevent easy task switching. This might seem restrictive, but restriction is exactly the point. When task switching requires significant effort, You naturally maintain focus longer because the friction prevents casual distraction. The fourth element is temporal architecture. Different types of work require different environmental configurations. Rather than trying to create one environment that works for everything, you create different time blocks with different environmental setups. Your day might include deep work blocks where your environment is radically simplified and all distractions are eliminated. It might include communication blocks where you are fully connected and responsive. It might include shallow work blocks where you handle necessary but less demanding tasks. The key is never mixing these modes. When you are in deep work mode, you are completely unavailable and fully focused. When you are in communication mode, you are fully available and responsive. Trying to do both simultaneously means you do neither effectively. The fifth element is cognitive load management through environmental order. Visual clutter and environmental chaos increase cognitive load and reduce available attention for focused work. Your brain automatically processes everything in your visual field, even if you are not consciously paying attention to it. A cluttered, disorganized environment forces your brain to constantly process irrelevant information, leaving less capacity for your actual work. The solution is extreme environmental simplicity during focus time. Clear desk with only items relevant to current task. Minimal visual complexity. Neutral colors that do not demand attention. Everything else removed or hidden from view. This is not about aesthetics. This is about reducing the background cognitive load that cluttered environments create. The sixth element is strategic use of what I call focus friction. You want to create friction, difficulty, and barriers around distracting behaviors while removing friction from focus behaviors. This means making it genuinely difficult to check your phone, browse social media, or engage in other distracting activities during focus time. Some people use apps that block access to distracting websites. Others physically lock their phones in another room. Some turn off their internet router during deep work sessions. The specific method matters less than the principle. Distraction should require breaking through meaningful barriers, not just momentary willpower. At the same time, you want to remove friction from focused work. This means having all necessary materials prepared in advance, eliminating setup time, creating templates and systems that make starting work effortless. The easier it is to begin focused work and the harder it is to distract yourself, the more focus you will achieve with less effort. The seventh element is strategic use of transitional rituals. Your brain cannot instantly switch from distraction mode to focus mode. It needs a transition period and a clear signal that the mode has changed. This is where transitional rituals become powerful. Before beginning focused work, you engage in a brief, consistent ritual that signals to your brain that focus time has begun. This might be preparing a specific beverage, doing brief physical movement, reviewing your goals for the session, or engaging in a few minutes of breath work. The specific activities matter less than the consistency and the association with what follows. Over time, the ritual itself becomes a powerful trigger that shifts your brain state. The eighth element is recovery architecture. Your ability to focus is not unlimited. You need strategic recovery periods built into your day. But the type of recovery matters enormously. Checking your phone, browsing social media, or consuming stimulating content during breaks does not provide cognitive recovery. It provides different types of stimulation while keeping your Attention system activated. True recovery comes from activities that allow your attention system to rest. Brief walks, especially in nature. Physical movement. Social interaction without devices. Quiet contemplation. These activities allow your executive network to recover while not triggering your alerting network. Building proper recovery into your environmental design means creating spaces and systems for genuine rest, not just different forms of stimulation. A focus-optimized life has clear boundaries between focused work, genuine recovery, and deliberate leisure or social time, with each having appropriate environmental support. This might seem extreme or impossible given your current circumstances. You might think you do not have control over your environment, or that these changes would be too disruptive. But the truth is that most people have far more control over their environment than they exercise. They simply have not made focus a high enough priority to redesign their environment around it. Start with whatever changes you can make. Even small environmental modifications produce measurable improvements in focus. As you experience the benefits, you will find ways to make more substantial changes. Eventually, you realize that environmental design is not a luxury or an optional optimization. It is the foundation of sustainable high-performance focus. Chapter 5. The Deep Work Protocol. Deep work is the most valuable type of work you can do, but it is also the most difficult and the most rare. Deep work means focused, distraction-free concentration on cognitively demanding tasks that push your abilities to their limit. This is the work that creates real value, solves complex problems, produces breakthrough insights, and builds rare and valuable skills. Most people do almost no deep work. They spend their days in what I call shallow work mode, handling emails, attending meetings, dealing with minor tasks, responding to messages, and generally staying busy without producing significant output. Shallow work feels productive because you are active and responsive, but it rarely creates real value or moves important projects forward. The difference between people who achieve extraordinary results and people who stay perpetually busy but unaccomplished is almost entirely explained by the amount of time spent in deep work. Elite performers in every field spend significantly more time in deep work mode than average performers. This is not because they are naturally more focused. It is because they have developed systems and protocols that enable deep work consistently. The deep work protocol I'm about to share is synthesized from research on peak performers across multiple domains and from neuroscience research on optimal conditions for sustained concentration. This is not theory. This is a practical system that works if you implement it seriously. The protocol has 5 phases. Phase 1 is preparation. Deep work does not begin when you sit down to work. It begins with the decisions you make hours or even days before the work session. Preparation means deciding specifically what you will work on during your deep work session. Vague intentions like work on project do not work. You need a clearly defined task or problem that will occupy your full attention. Preparation means gathering all necessary materials, information, or resources in advance so you do not need to break focus to find things during your work session. Every interruption to search for information or retrieve materials destroys the cognitive state required for deep work. Preparation means eliminating all scheduling uncertainty. You need to know exactly when your deep work session begins, when it ends, and that nothing will interrupt this time. Calendar blocked, with no possibility of meetings or commitments. Other people informed that you are unavailable. No ambiguity or flexibility that allows the session to be displaced. Preparation means pre-deciding how you will handle the inevitable urge to distract yourself. When the work gets difficult, your brain will generate powerful impulses to check your phone, look something up online, or switch to easier tasks. Knowing in advance that these impulses will arise and having a pre-committed plan for how to handle them dramatically increases your ability to resist. Phase 2 is isolation. Deep work requires complete isolation from all potential interruptions and distractions. This is non-negotiable. You cannot do deep work while remaining available for questions, while checking email periodically, or while staying connected to messaging systems. The argument that you need to remain available for emergencies is almost always false. Genuine emergencies that require your immediate attention are extremely rare. What people call emergencies are usually just urgent-seeming tasks that could easily wait an hour or two. If you genuinely need to remain available for true emergencies, you can designate one person who can reach you through one specific channel, and you can check that channel at predetermined times during your deep work session. But this should be rare, and for genuine emergencies only, not for normal work communication. Physical isolation is ideal when possible. A closed door, a separate room, or even a completely different location that you associate only with deep work. If physical isolation is impossible, you need to create what I call virtual isolation through headphones, visible signals that you are not to be disturbed, and clear communication with others about your unavailability. The goal is to create conditions where interruption is not just discouraged, but genuinely difficult. If someone can interrupt you by simply walking up and talking to you, they will. If interrupting you requires sending an email that you have communicated you will not see for 2 hours, most interruptions will never happen because they were not actually important. Phase 3 is engagement. Once you have prepared properly and isolated yourself, you need to engage fully with the task. This is where most people fail. They create the conditions for deep work, but then do not actually enter the mental state required. Engagement begins with a clear starting action. You do not sit down and wait to feel focused. You begin the work immediately with a specific, defined action. Open the document and write the first sentence. Pull up the code and write the first function. Start the calculation or the analysis. The act of beginning creates momentum. Your brain needs a few minutes to fully shift into deep work mode. During this transition period, focus will feel effortful and the work will feel harder than it should. This is normal. Do not interpret this initial friction as evidence that you are not ready to work or that you need more preparation. Push through it. Within 10 to 15 minutes, if your preparation and isolation were done properly, you will feel the shift into flow state, where the work becomes engaging and focus becomes effortless. During the engagement phase, you must commit to not breaking focus for any reason short of genuine emergency. Every time you check your phone, look something up that is not directly necessary or allow your mind to wander to other concerns, you reset the clock on deep work. You lose the cognitive state you built and must rebuild it from scratch. This is why people who constantly interrupt their own focus never achieve deep work, even if they sit at their desk for hours. They stay perpetually in the shallow startup phase without ever entering the deep state where real work happens. When difficult moments arise, and they will, you acknowledge the difficulty and the impulse to distract yourself, and then you refocus on the immediate next action in your work. You do not need to solve the entire problem or complete the entire task. You just need to do the next small piece, then the next, then the next. Phase 4 is intensity modulation. You cannot maintain maximum intensity focus indefinitely. Deep work sessions need internal structure that allows for variation in intensity while maintaining overall focus. One effective approach is to work in intervals. 50 minutes of maximum intensity focus, followed by a 10-minute break where you rest your eyes, move your body, and let your mind wander. Then back to another 50-minute interval. The break is crucial, but it must be genuine rest, not checking your phone or consuming other stimulating content. Another approach is to vary the type of cognitive work within your deep work session. Start with the most demanding conceptual work when your cognitive resources are fresh. As you begin to experience mental fatigue, shift to less demanding but still valuable work like organizing your thinking, reviewing what you have produced, or planning next steps. What you never do is break deep work to do shallow work. You do not check email during breaks. You do not handle quick, administrative tasks between intervals. Any shallow work during deep work time contaminates the entire session and prevents you from accessing the deepest levels of focus. Phase 5 is closure. How you end your deep work session matters almost as much as how you conduct it. Proper closure includes reviewing what you accomplished during the session and acknowledging progress, even if it feels insufficient. Your brain needs to register that the focused effort produced results. Proper closure includes capturing any insights, questions, or next steps that emerge during the work so you do not lose them, but also do not need to keep them in working memory. Proper closure includes a clear transition out of work mode. Just as you need a ritual to enter focus, you need a ritual to exit it and transition to whatever comes next. Without this, you will find yourself still mentally chewing on work problems during time that should be devoted to recovery or other activities. The deep work protocol requires practice. Your first attempts will be imperfect. You will struggle to maintain focus for the full planned duration. You will find yourself breaking the protocol in small ways. This is normal. The key is to treat each session as practice and gradually improve your capacity over time. Start with whatever duration you can currently handle, even if it is just 30 or 40 minutes. Execute the protocol as cleanly as possible for that duration. Gradually extend the duration over weeks and months as your capacity increases. Most people can eventually build to 2 to 3 hours of deep work in a single session, which is where profound productivity becomes possible. Some elite performers can do even more, but there are diminishing returns beyond 3 to 4 hours per session. The goal is not to spend your entire day in deep work mode. That is neither sustainable nor desirable. The goal is to consistently achieve 2 to 4 hours of genuine deep work per day, which is far more than most people achieve in a week. This amount of deep work, executed consistently, produces results that seem impossible to people operating in constant shallow work mode. Chapter 6. Attention Training Through Deliberate Practice. Focus is not just about creating the right environment and following protocols. Those things are crucial, but they are not sufficient. You also need to train your actual attentional capacity through deliberate practice, just like you would train any other skill. Most people never train their attention directly. They just try to focus when they need to and hope for the best. This is like trying to run a marathon without ever training your cardiovascular system. Your current capacity might allow you to run a mile or two, but without training, you will never achieve marathon performance. Attention training means regularly engaging in specific practices designed to strengthen the neural systems underlying focus and concentration. These practices should feel challenging but doable, just like effective physical training. If they feel easy, they are not creating adaptation. If they feel impossible, they are too advanced for your current capacity. The first attention training practice is sustained single task focus. This is simply choosing a mentally demanding task and focusing on it for a predetermined period without allowing any interruptions or distractions. The task itself matters less than the sustained focus. You could read a challenging book, work on a complex problem, practice a skill, or engage in any activity that requires continuous attention. The key elements are clear start and stop times, absolutely no interruptions or task switching during the practice period, and the task must be genuinely demanding enough that your mind wants to wander. If the task is too easy or too engaging, you are not training attention because you do not need to resist distraction. Start with whatever duration challenges you. For many people, habituated to constant distraction, even 15 minutes of sustained focus feels difficult. That is your starting point. Practice this daily and gradually extend the duration by 5 to 10 minutes each week until you can sustain focus for 90 minutes or more. The second attention training practice is distraction resistance. This involves deliberately practicing focus in increasingly distracting environments. You start in a perfectly quiet, distraction-free space where sustained focus is relatively easy. Once you can maintain focus there consistently, you gradually introduce controlled distractions while maintaining focus. You might practice in a cafe with background noise and activity. You might work with instrumental music playing. You might practice with a timer giving you periodic interruptions that you acknowledge but do not respond to. The goal is to train your selective attention to filter out irrelevant stimuli while maintaining focus on task-relevant information. This practice builds resilience so you can maintain focus even when environmental conditions are not perfect. The third attention training practice is attention switching. This involves deliberately moving your attention between different tasks or types of information on a predetermined schedule rather than switching reactively. You might work on task A for 20 minutes, then deliberately switch to task B for 20 minutes, then back to task A. The switches are planned in advance and executed regardless of whether you feel like switching or want to continue with the current task. This trains your alternating attention and reduces the cognitive cost of task switching. You learn to switch efficiently while maintaining control rather than being jerked around by impulse or external demands. The fourth attention training practice is meditation or mindfulness. This is perhaps the most powerful attention training tool available, and the research supporting it is overwhelming. Regular meditation practice increases gray matter density in brain regions associated with attention and executive control. It improves sustained attention, selective attention, and meta-awareness of your own mental state. The specific type of meditation matters less than consistency. You could practice focused attention meditation, where you sustain attention on a single object like breath. You could practice open monitoring meditation, where you maintain broad awareness of all experience without getting caught up in any particular content. You could practice body scan meditation, where you systematically move attention through different body regions. All of these approaches train attention in valuable ways. Start with just 5 to 10 minutes per day. The key is consistency, not duration. Daily practice of 10 minutes produces far better results than occasional practice of an hour. As your capacity increases, gradually extend the duration. Many elite performers eventually build to 20 to 30 minutes or more of daily meditation practice. The fifth attention training practice is what I call attention recovery. This involves deliberately practicing letting your mind rest and wander without engaging with stimulating content. Modern people have almost completely lost the ability to be alone with their thoughts without immediately reaching for some form of stimulation. This inability to tolerate boredom and unstimulated mental space severely limits attentional capacity. Attention recovery practice means regularly spending time with absolutely no external stimulation. No phone, no reading, no music, no conversation. Just you and your thoughts. You might spend 10 minutes sitting quietly. You might go for a walk without headphones or devices. You might lie down and simply think or daydream. This practice feels uncomfortable at first for most people. They experience boredom, restlessness, or anxiety. These feelings are information about how dependent you have become on external stimulation. Push through them. Over time, these periods become refreshing rather than uncomfortable. You rediscover the capacity for internal thought and reflection that constant stimulation has suppressed. The sixth attention training practice is analog deep reading. Reading physical books without any digital devices nearby is one of the best attention training practices available. Books require sustained focus. They do not provide the rapid rewards and novelty that digital content does, and they train your brain to engage with complex ideas developed over extended time. The key is to read genuinely challenging material that requires focus to understand, and to do so for extended periods. 30 to 60 minutes of continuous reading daily provides excellent attention training while also building knowledge and vocabulary. The seventh attention training practice is deliberate boredom exposure. This might seem strange, but learning to tolerate boredom without immediately seeking stimulation is crucial for attention mastery. Modern life has been carefully engineered to eliminate all boredom. You always have your phone available to fill any empty moment. This constant availability of stimulation has destroyed your tolerance for unstimulated mental states. Deliberately practice being bored without rescuing yourself. Wait in line without checking your phone. Sit in a waiting room without reading or using devices. Experience the physical sensation of boredom and the mental discomfort without immediately acting to relieve it. This trains your brain that boredom is tolerable and temporary, which dramatically reduces the power that boredom has to drive distracted behavior. All of these practices work through the same basic mechanism. They create conditions that are slightly more challenging than your current capacity, which forces adaptation and growth in the underlying neural systems. Over time, what once required maximum effort becomes routine, and you are ready to increase the difficulty. The key to effective attention training is consistency and progressive overload. Daily practice, even if brief, produces better results than sporadic long sessions. Gradual increases in difficulty produce better results than sudden jumps that are too challenging. Most people never train their attention because they do not see it as a trainable skill. They think focus is just something you have or do not have. This is completely false. Attention is as trainable as physical fitness, and the results of training are just as dramatic. 6 months of consistent attention training can completely transform your focus capacity from someone who cannot maintain attention for more than a few minutes to someone who can focus deeply for hours at a time. Chapter 7: Breaking the Digital Addiction Cycle. Let me be direct about something that most productivity experts will not tell you. You are not just distracted, you are addicted. The technologies you use every day have been specifically designed to create addictive patterns of use, and these addictions are destroying your ability to focus. Until you acknowledge and address the addiction, no amount of willpower or productivity techniques will create lasting change. The addiction model explains why people know that constant phone checking is harmful, but cannot stop doing it. It explains why you can feel genuinely anxious when separated from your device. It explains why you check your phone within minutes of waking up, why you feel phantom vibrations, why you compulsively refresh feeds even when you just check them. These are not habits. These are addiction symptoms. The technology companies understand addiction mechanics better than most drug dealers. They employ the same variable reward schedules that make gambling addictive. They exploit social validation needs to create fear of missing out. They use infinite scroll to eliminate natural stopping points. They optimize every aspect of their interfaces to maximize engagement, which is a polite way of saying maximize addictive behavior. The dopamine response triggered by social media, email, and other digital platforms is neurologically similar to the response triggered by cocaine or gambling. The magnitude is smaller, but the mechanisms are the same. Your brain is being trained to crave the next hit of digital stimulation, and like any addiction, tolerance increases over time. You need more frequent checks, more stimulating content, more novel information to get the same reward feeling. Breaking digital addiction requires the same approach that works for any addiction. You cannot moderate your way out of addiction. You cannot use willpower to control compulsive behavior. You need complete abstinence from the addictive trigger, at least temporarily, while you reset your brain chemistry and build new patterns. For most people, this means a complete digital detox period. No social media, no news sites, no recreational internet use, no smartphone except for essential communication on a strict schedule. This typically needs to last at least 2 weeks to break the acute addiction cycle, though full reset takes much longer. The first few days of digital detox are genuinely difficult. You will experience withdrawal symptoms, anxiety, restlessness, boredom, irritability, difficulty sleeping. Your brain is accustomed to constant dopamine hits from digital stimulation, and it is screaming for its fix. These symptoms are proof that you were genuinely addicted, not just a little distracted. Most people cannot complete even a 3-day digital detox without breaking it. They convince themselves that they need to check something for work, or that one quick look will not hurt, or that this particular situation justifies an exception. These are the same rationalizations that any addict uses. If you cannot go 3 days without checking social media or recreational internet, you are addicted and you need to take that seriously. The key to successful detox is preparing your environment and your schedule to minimize triggers and maximize support. Tell other people what you are doing so they can support you and hold you accountable. Remove apps from your phone. Or better yet, use a basic phone that cannot access these services. Fill your time with activities that provide genuine satisfaction rather than just different forms of stimulation. After the acute detox period, you cannot simply return to previous usage patterns. That would be like an alcoholic going back to social drinking. It does not work. You need to establish completely new relationships with these technologies based on intentional, limited scheduled use rather than compulsive, frequent, reactive use. This means establishing strict rules and boundaries. Social media only on specific days at specific times, never on your phone, never first thing in the morning or last thing before bed. Email, checked at predetermined times, not constantly throughout the day. News consumed once, daily, or even once weekly, not continuously. Phone kept out of sight and out of reach during all work time, all meals, all social interactions. These boundaries need to be absolute, not flexible. The moment you start making exceptions, you are back on the addiction treadmill. One quick check becomes 5 checks, becomes constant checking within days. You need to treat digital platforms like the addictive substances they are. Some people push back against the addiction framing. They argue that they need these tools for work, or that complete avoidance is unrealistic. This misses the point. The addiction is not to the technology itself, but to the compulsive, reward-seeking patterns of use. You can use email for work without being addicted to checking it every 5 minutes. You can use your phone for navigation or communication without being addicted to scrolling through feeds. The question is whether you control your use or your use controls you. An honest assessment usually reveals the uncomfortable truth. Breaking digital addiction also requires replacing the functions these platforms served in your life. If you used social media for social connection, you need to build real-world social connections. If you used news sites to feel informed, you need to find less addictive ways to stay updated on information that actually matters. If you use digital platforms to escape boredom or difficult emotions, you need to develop healthier coping mechanisms. This replacement process is crucial because addiction is often about filling a need or avoiding discomfort. If you eliminate the addictive behavior without addressing the underlying need, you will either relapse or substitute a different addiction. One of the most powerful tools for breaking digital addiction is understanding the true cost of these behaviors. Not the vague sense that you waste too much time, but the actual calculation of what this addiction is costing you. If you spend 3 hours per day on social media and digital distraction, that is over 1,000 hours per year. What could you accomplish with an extra 1,000 hours per year of focused time? You could master a new skill. You could build a business. You could write a book. You could dramatically improve your health. You could deepen your most important relationships. The opportunity cost of digital addiction is staggering, but most people never calculate it clearly enough to feel its weight. Another crucial element is developing what I call digital immunity. This means training yourself to feel no anxiety or discomfort when separated from digital devices and no compulsion to check them constantly. Digital immunity is built through progressively longer periods of device separation combined with mindfulness of the thoughts and feelings that arise. When you feel the urge to check your phone, instead of immediately acting on it, you pause and observe. What is the underlying feeling driving this urge? Boredom, anxiety, loneliness, fear of missing something. By repeatedly experiencing these feelings without acting on them, you break the automatic connection between feeling and behavior. You learn that the discomfort is temporary and tolerable. Your brain learns that not checking is safe and that the urge will pass. Over time, the urges become less frequent and less intense. Eventually, you develop genuine immunity where you can be around your phone without feeling compelled to check it, where you can go hours or days without social media, without experiencing anxiety, where your sense of well-being is not dependent on digital validation. This level of digital immunity is rare in modern society, which makes it an enormous competitive advantage for anyone who develops it. You can focus while others are distracted. You can think clearly while others are overwhelmed by information. You can be present while others are perpetually elsewhere. Breaking digital addiction is not easy, and it requires confronting some uncomfortable truths about how these technologies have shaped your behavior and consciousness. But it is absolutely necessary if you want to reclaim your attention and unlock your potential. Every day you remain addicted is another day of diminished capacity, scattered focus, and unrealized potential. Chapter 8: The Power of Attention Residue and Cognitive Switching Costs. One of the most important concepts for understanding focus is attention residue. This is the phenomenon where part of your attention remains allocated to a previous task, even after you switch to a new task. Understanding attention residue explains why your focus feels scattered even when you eliminate obvious distractions, and why some patterns of work create mental exhaustion while others create energized productivity. Here is how attention residue works. When you are working on a task, your brain allocates neural resources to maintain relevant information in working memory and suppress irrelevant information. When you switch to a new task before fully completing the first task, those neural resources do not instantly reallocate. Part of your brain is still holding on to the previous task, which means you are trying to do the new task with only partial cognitive capacity. The research on this is startling. After switching tasks, it can take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to fully clear attention residue and achieve maximum performance on the new task. During this transition period, you are working at reduced capacity. You make more errors, think less clearly, and work less efficiently. Now consider what this means for typical modern work patterns. If you switch tasks every 5 to 10 minutes, which is common for people who respond to emails as they arrive, take calls throughout the day, and jump between different projects, you never achieve full cognitive capacity on anything. You spend your entire day working with attention residue from previous tasks, never reaching the peak performance state that comes from sustained focus. This explains why people can work all day and feel exhausted, but accomplish very little. They were never actually working at full capacity because attention residue kept them perpetually in a reduced performance state. The solution is to structure work in a way that minimizes attention residue. This means working on single tasks for extended periods until you reach a natural completion point, rather than switching based on time limits or external interruptions. It means batching similar tasks together, so attention residue from one task actually helps with the next task rather than hindering it. It means creating clear boundaries between different types of work, so you can fully transition your mental state. Let me give you concrete examples. If you need to write a report, respond to emails, and analyze data in a single day, the typical approach would be to switch between these tasks multiple times. Write for 30 minutes, check email, do some analysis, back to writing, More email, more analysis. This creates maximum attention residue because you are constantly switching between completely different cognitive processes. The optimized approach is to batch these activities. Handle all emails in a single block, maybe first thing in the morning or just before lunch. Do all analytical work in another block when your cognitive resources are fresh. Do all writing in a third block, ideally during your peak focus period. Within each block, you are doing similar cognitive work, so attention residue from one email helps with the next email rather than interfering with completely different tasks. The cognitive switching cost is related but slightly different from attention residue. Switching cost is the time and mental energy required to change from one task to another. Every switch requires your brain to save the context of the current task, load the context of the new task, and suppress the natural impulse to continue with the previous task. This process is not instantaneous or effortless. It consumes real cognitive resources. Research shows that people who engage in frequent task switching lose over 20% of their productive time to switching costs. Some estimates put this figure even higher. Think about what that means. If you work 8 hours per day and lose 20% to switching costs, you are losing nearly 2 hours of productive time every single day, just to the friction of moving between tasks. Over a year, that is hundreds of hours of lost productivity. The people who accomplish the most do not have more hours in their day. They have dramatically lower switching costs because they structure their work to minimize task transitions. The way to minimize switching costs is to work in what I call monotasking blocks. These are extended periods, typically 1 to 3 hours, where you work on a single project or type of task without switching. No checking email, no quick calls, no just checking on that other thing. One task, start to finish, or to a meaningful stopping point. During these blocks, your brain fully commits to the task. You build up context, momentum, and flow state. The work becomes easier and more productive as you progress because you are not constantly restarting. When you do need to switch tasks, you do so deliberately and completely rather than partially. This means taking a real break between tasks to allow attention residue to clear. Standing up, moving around, shifting your environment if possible. Engaging in a brief reset activity that allows your brain to release the previous task before loading the next one. Many people experience their best focus during morning hours, and attention residue explains part of why. Your brain has not yet accumulated residue from multiple task switches. Your cognitive resources are fully available. As the day progresses and you switch between more tasks, attention residue accumulates, switching costs add up, and your effective capacity decreases even if your absolute energy level remains reasonable. This is why protecting your morning hours for deep work is so valuable. You are not just using your freshest energy. You are also working when your attention is least fragmented by residue from other tasks. Another crucial insight is that attention residue is worse for unfinished tasks. When you leave a task incomplete and switch to something else, your brain continues to allocate resources to the incomplete task. Part of your mind keeps working on it in the background, trying to hold the context so you can return to it. This is known as the Zeigarnik effect. Incomplete tasks occupy more mental space than completed tasks. The practical application is that whenever possible, you should work on tasks to completion or to a clear stopping point where you capture any relevant information externally. Do not leave multiple tasks in partially complete states across your day. Each incomplete task adds to your cognitive load and creates a tension residue that interferes with everything else. Some people use open loops intentionally by stopping work at a point where they know what comes next. This can make it easier to resume the task later. But the key is that there is only one open loop, and everything else has been completed or captured. You are not juggling multiple incomplete tasks simultaneously. The role of technology in creating attention residue and switching costs is enormous. Every notification, every open tab, every paused video or interrupted article creates a micro open loop that holds attention residue. This is why having 15 browser tabs open feels cognitively heavy even if you are only actively using one. Your brain is maintaining context for all of them. The solution is radical simplification. One task, one window, one application at a time. Everything else closed and cleared away. When you finish with that task, you close it completely before opening the next. This dramatically reduces the background cognitive load that accumulated open loops create. Email is particularly problematic for attention residue because people often scan their inbox without responding to messages. You see a message that requires a thoughtful response. You acknowledge that you need to deal with it, but you do not do it right now. That creates an open loop that generates attention residue. Do the same thing with 10 or 20 emails, and your cognitive load becomes crushing. The better approach is to only open email when you have time to process it completely. Each email gets handled once. You either respond immediately, schedule it to be handled later with a specific plan, or delete it. You never scan email just to see what is there without taking action. This eliminates the accumulation of open loops and attention residue. Meetings are another major source of attention residue and switching costs. Most meetings require significant context loading beforehand and generate action items that create open loops afterward. If you have meetings scattered throughout your day, you spend huge amounts of cognitive energy switching in and out of meeting context. Batching meetings into specific time blocks reduces these costs. Instead of meetings at 10, 1, and 3, schedule them consecutively when possible. You load the collaboration context once, handle all meetings, then return to focused work without repeated switching. Understanding attention residue and switching costs changes how you think about productivity. It is not about how many hours you work or how many tasks you touch. It is about how effectively you structure your attention and minimize the cognitive costs of fragmentation. The people who produce the most value are not working more hours. They are working with cleaner attention. Chapter 9. Building unbreakable focus routines. Motivation is unreliable. Willpower is finite. Environment helps, but is not always under your control. What you need are routines so strong that focus happens automatically regardless of how you feel or what else is going on in your life. These are not just habits. They are structured systems that make focused work the inevitable outcome of your daily choices. The concept of routines for focus is often misunderstood. People think routines are about forcing yourself to do things the same way every day. That is part of it. But the real power of routines is that they eliminate decisions, reduce friction, and create momentum. When you have strong routines, you do not need to decide whether to focus or what to focus on or when to start. The routine decides for you, and you just execute. The first element of an unbreakable focus routine is a consistent daily schedule that protects your peak focus hours. For most people, cognitive capacity is highest in the morning, though there is individual variation. Whenever your peak hours are, they must be protected absolutely for your most important deep work. Not meetings, not email, not shallow tasks. Your best hours go to your best work. This scheduling needs to be non-negotiable, not flexible based on other demands, not available for meetings just because someone asks, not up for discussion or compromise. Your peak focus hours are blocked and protected with the same priority you would give to a critical medical appointment. You simply are not available during those hours. The second element is a consistent morning routine that primes your brain for focus before you begin work. This is not about elaborate rituals or complex sequences. It is about consistently doing a few key things that shift your brain into a focused state. Physical movement is crucial. Even 10 to 15 minutes of exercise, walking, or movement increases blood flow to your brain, releases neurochemicals that support focus, and helps clear mental fog. Hydration matters more than most people realize. Your brain is over 70% water, and even mild dehydration impairs cognitive function. Drinking substantial water first thing in the morning rehydrates your brain and improves mental clarity. Nutrition timing and content affect focus significantly. Heavy meals, especially those high in refined carbohydrates, create blood sugar spikes and crashes that destroy focus. Protein-rich, moderate meals provide stable energy. Many high performers do their deep work fasted or after only light nutrition to maintain peak mental clarity. Mental preparation is equally important. This might be reviewing your goals, visualizing the work you will accomplish, or engaging in brief meditation or breathing exercises. The specific activities matter less than the consistency and the fact that they transition your brain from sleep mode to focus mode. The third element is a consistent work initiation ritual. This is the specific sequence of actions you take immediately before beginning focused work. The ritual serves two purposes. First, it creates a clear transition point that signals to your brain that focus time has begun. Second, it handles all the small setup tasks so you can dive directly into deep work without friction. Your work initiation ritual might include making coffee or tea, clearing your workspace, closing all unnecessary applications, putting your phone in another room, putting on specific music or noise that you associate with focus, and reviewing exactly what you will accomplish in this session. The ritual should be the same every time. This consistency creates a powerful psychological trigger. After doing this ritual hundreds of times before focused work, simply beginning the ritual shifts your brain toward focus mode even before you start the actual work. The fourth element is time blocking with militant precision. Your entire day should be blocked in advance with specific activities assigned to specific time periods. Not vague blocks like morning work. Specific blocks like 8 to 10:30, write report introduction, and literature review section. When you know exactly what you are supposed to be doing at any given moment, you eliminate the decision fatigue and procrastination that comes from constantly choosing what to work on. Time blocking also forces realistic assessment of how much you can actually accomplish. When you have to fit activities into actual time slots, you quickly realize that your to-do list is impossibly long and you need to prioritize ruthlessly. The fifth element is a shutdown ritual that creates clear boundaries between work and non-work time. This is just as important as the startup ritual. Without a clear shutdown, work concerns leak into your evening and weekend, preventing genuine recovery and maintaining background cognitive load that impairs your focus during actual work time. The shutdown ritual includes reviewing what you accomplished, planning the next day in specific detail, capturing any open loops or unfinished thoughts externally so they do not occupy mental space, and then deliberately closing all work applications and physically leaving your workspace if possible. The most important part of the shutdown ritual is telling yourself that work is done for the day. This sounds simple, but most people never give themselves clear permission to stop working mentally. They remain in a state of vague work readiness, unable to fully engage with non-work activities, but also not actually working. The shutdown ritual creates a clear transition where you declare work finished and give yourself complete permission to be off. The sixth element is strategic routines around the major focus killers. Email, meetings, and social media are the three activities most likely to destroy your focus. You need specific routines that contain these activities rather than letting them infiltrate your entire day. Email routine is checking and processing email at predetermined times only, typically once or twice per day. You never check email first thing in the morning because that hands control of your day to other people's priorities. You never check email right before focused work because it generates attention residue and open loops. You check at scheduled times and process everything in one batch. Meeting routine is limiting meetings to specific days or specific time blocks when possible, having clear agendas and time limits for every meeting, and scheduling meetings consecutively rather than scattered throughout the day. Many high performers have meeting-free days where they are completely unavailable for any meetings, which protects their focus time absolutely. Social media routine is eliminating social media entirely from work days, or if you must maintain some presence, limiting it to one specific time for a limited duration. Never on your phone, never in the morning, never integrated with your work environment. The seventh element is recovery routines that maintain your capacity for sustained focus over time. You cannot focus intensely, indefinitely. You need strategic recovery built into your day, week, and year. Daily recovery includes real breaks between focus blocks where you move your body, rest your eyes, and let your mind wander, not checking your phone or consuming other stimulating content. Genuine cognitive rest. Weekly recovery includes at least one full day where you do no work and no work-related thinking. This complete separation allows your brain to consolidate learning, restore depleted resources, and maintain long-term focus capacity. Annual recovery includes extended periods of vacation where you completely disconnect from work. These are not optional luxuries. They are essential maintenance for sustained high performance. The eighth element is routine evaluation and adjustment. Your routines should not be static. As your capacity grows, as your circumstances change, as you learn what works and what does not, you need to adjust your routines accordingly. Schedule a weekly review where you assess how well your routines are serving you. Are you actually following them consistently? Are they producing the focus outcomes you need? What adjustments would make them more effective? This meta-level attention to your routines keeps them optimized and prevents them from becoming stale or ineffective. The power of unbreakable focus routines compounds over time. Each day of following your routines strengthens the neural pathways and psychological associations that make focus easier. Each violation of your routines weakens those connections and makes focus harder. This is why consistency matters more than perfection. Following your routines imperfectly but consistently produces better long-term results than perfect execution interrupted by frequent breaks in the routine. Most people fail to build strong focus routines because they try to change too much at once. They design elaborate systems that require perfect execution. Then they fail, feel discouraged, and abandon the entire effort. The better approach is to build your focus routines incrementally. Start with one element, maybe protecting your peak focus hours and establishing a simple morning routine. Execute that consistently for a few weeks until it feels automatic. Then add the next element. Layer by layer, you build a comprehensive system that supports focus automatically, rather than requiring constant willpower and decision-making. Chapter 10. The Focus Multiplier Effect of Physical Optimization. Your brain is not separate from your body. The physical condition of your body directly determines your capacity for focus and concentration. Most people ignore this completely. They try to improve focus through mental techniques while maintaining physical habits that make sustained concentration nearly impossible. If you want to master focus, you must optimize your physical state. The research on this is clear and overwhelming. Physical fitness, sleep quality, nutrition, hydration, and movement patterns all have enormous effects on cognitive function and attention capacity. The people with the strongest focus are almost always people who take their physical health seriously. Let me break down each component and show you exactly how physical optimization multiplies your focus capacity. Sleep is the foundation of everything. When you are sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for focus and executive function, essentially goes offline. You become more impulsive, more distractible, more emotionally reactive, and dramatically less capable of sustained concentration. The research shows that after just one night of partial sleep deprivation, cognitive performance decreases by over 20%. After several days of poor sleep, you are functionally operating at the level of someone who is legally drunk. Yet most people chronically undersleep and wonder why they cannot focus. The solution is non-negotiable. You need 7 to 9 hours of actual sleep per night, not just time in bed. Sleep quality matters as much as quantity. Your bedroom must be completely dark, cool, and quiet. No screens for at least an hour before bed. No caffeine after early afternoon. A consistent sleep schedule that does not vary by more than 30 minutes even on weekends. Most people dramatically underestimate how much poor sleep is costing them. They think they have adapted to functioning on less sleep. They have not adapted. They have just forgotten what normal cognitive function feels like. When they finally prioritize sleep and maintain excellent sleep habits for several weeks, they are shocked by how much sharper, more focused, and more productive they become. Exercise has direct and immediate effects on focus and cognitive function. Physical activity increases blood flow to your brain, delivers more oxygen and nutrients, stimulates the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which grows new brain cells and connections, and releases neurochemicals that improve mood and mental clarity. The effects are not subtle. Studies show that even a single bout of moderate exercise immediately improves attention and cognitive performance for the following several hours. Regular exercise produces even more dramatic long-term benefits. People who exercise consistently show better sustained attention, faster processing speed, improved working memory, and greater resistance to cognitive decline. The type of exercise matters less than consistency. Cardiovascular exercise, strength training, and movement practices like yoga all provide cognitive benefits through different mechanisms. The ideal is a combination that includes intensity, variety, and consistency. What you definitely need is movement earlier in your day before your primary focus work. Even 20 to 30 minutes of exercise primes your brain for peak cognitive performance during the subsequent hours. Many elite performers schedule their most important deep work immediately after morning exercise when their cognitive resources are maximally available. Nutrition has massive effects on focus that most people completely ignore. Your brain consumes over 20% of your total energy despite being only about 2% of your body weight. It is an energy-hungry organ that is highly sensitive to fuel quality and availability. Blood sugar stability is crucial for sustained focus. When your blood sugar spikes after eating refined carbohydrates, you get a brief energy boost followed by a crash that destroys concentration. When your blood sugar is stable, your focus can remain steady for hours. The solution is to build meals around protein and healthy fats, include fiber to slow digestion, and minimize refined carbohydrates, especially during workdays. Many high performers eat a protein-rich breakfast or no breakfast at all, then have a light lunch that will not cause afternoon energy crashes. They save larger meals for evening when cognitive performance is less critical. Specific nutrients have particular importance for brain function and focus. Omega-3 fatty acids support neural health and cognitive performance. B vitamins are essential for energy production in brain cells. Magnesium supports hundreds of biochemical reactions involved in brain function. Iron carries oxygen to your brain. Deficiencies in any of these create cognitive impairment that directly reduces focus capacity. Hydration is perhaps the most overlooked factor in focus and cognitive performance. Your brain is over 70% water, and brain cells need proper hydration to function efficiently. Even mild dehydration, as little as 2% body water loss, measurably impairs attention, memory, and cognitive speed. Most people are chronically mildly dehydrated and have no idea how much this is costing them mentally. The solution is straightforward. Drink substantial water throughout the day, starting with a large glass immediately upon waking. Monitor your hydration status through urine color, which should be pale yellow. Do not wait until you feel thirsty, because thirst indicates you are already dehydrated. Caffeine is a tool that can enhance focus when used strategically, but impairs focus when used poorly. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors in your brain, which temporarily prevents the feeling of tiredness and increases alertness. Used properly, caffeine can improve attention, reaction time, and cognitive performance. The key is strategic timing and moderation. Caffeine takes about 30 minutes to reach peak effect and lasts 4 to 6 hours in your system. This means consuming caffeine in the morning can support focus during morning work hours. Consuming caffeine after early afternoon interferes with sleep quality that night, which destroys focus the following day. Most people use caffeine poorly. They drink it constantly throughout the day to fight tiredness instead of addressing why they are tired in the first place. They build tolerance, so they need more and more to get any effect. They consume it late in the day and destroy their sleep. The optimal approach for most people is a single dose of caffeine in the morning, consumed after you have already been awake for an hour or two. This leverages caffeine's focus-enhancing effects during your peak work hours while ensuring it is out of your system by evening. Some people benefit from a second small dose in early afternoon, but no caffeine after 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Movement patterns throughout your day dramatically affect your ability to maintain focus. Sitting stationary for extended periods reduces blood flow, increases muscle tension, and leads to mental fatigue much faster than working with regular movement breaks. The research shows that brief movement breaks every hour significantly improve sustained attention and reduce mental fatigue. These do not need to be long breaks. Even standing up and moving around for 2 to 3 minutes every hour provides measurable benefits. The movement increases blood flow, releases muscle tension, gives your eyes a break from screen focus, and allows brief mental reset. Many high performers use standing desks or treadmill desks to incorporate movement directly into their work. Others schedule brief walks between focus blocks. The specific approach matters less than ensuring you are not sitting completely stationary for hours at a time. Environmental factors affect your physical state, which affects your focus. Light exposure is crucial. Bright light, especially blue-enriched light that mimics natural daylight, increases alertness and cognitive performance. Working in dim environments or under warm artificial light promotes drowsiness and reduces focus capacity. Temperature matters. Most people focus better in slightly cool environments, typically between 68 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Too warm, and you become drowsy. Too cold, and discomfort becomes distracting. Air quality affects oxygen availability to your brain. Stuffy, poorly ventilated spaces reduce cognitive performance. Fresh air and good ventilation support sustained focus. The compound effect of physical optimization on focus cannot be overstated. Each individual factor, excellent sleep, regular exercise, stable nutrition, proper hydration, makes a measurable difference. Combined together, they multiply your focus capacity. Someone who sleeps well, exercises regularly, eats for stable energy, and stays properly hydrated can focus 2 to 3 times longer and at significantly higher intensity than someone who neglects these factors. This is not an exaggeration. The difference in focus capacity between physically optimized and physically neglected individuals is that dramatic. Yet most people trying to improve focus ignore physical optimization entirely. They look for mental tricks and productivity techniques while sleeping poorly, sitting all day, eating garbage, and wondering why they cannot concentrate. Physical optimization is not separate from focus, mastery. It is the foundation that everything else builds on. Without it, no amount of mental technique or willpower will create sustained high-level focus. With it, focus becomes dramatically easier and more sustainable. Chapter 11. The social dimension of focus and attention. Focus does not exist in a vacuum. You are embedded in social relationships and social environments that profoundly affect your ability to concentrate. Most focus advice ignores this completely, but the social dimension is often the determining factor in whether you can maintain deep focus or remain trapped in distraction. Let me be blunt about something most people do not want to hear. The people around you are either supporting your focus or destroying it. There is no neutral. Every relationship, every social interaction, every work environment is either making it easier for you to concentrate or making it harder. And most people surround themselves with focus destroyers while wondering why they cannot get anything done. Social interruption is one of the biggest killers of focus in modern work environments. Every time someone stops by your desk to chat, every time a colleague asks a quick question, every time someone schedules a meeting, they are fragmenting your attention and destroying your capacity for deep work. These people are not malicious. They do not realize the damage they are causing. But the impact is real and enormous, regardless of intent. The research on social interruption is damning. After a social interruption, it takes an average of 23 minutes to return to full focus on your previous task. Most people are interrupted by coworkers multiple times per hour. This means they never achieve deep focus. They spend their entire workday in a state of partial attention and fractured concentration. The solution requires setting clear boundaries and managing expectations. You need to establish that you have certain periods where you are completely unavailable for interruption, except for genuine emergencies. You need to communicate these boundaries clearly and enforce them consistently, even when it feels uncomfortable. Many people are afraid to set these boundaries because they worry about seeming unfriendly or uncooperative. This is a false concern. The people who accomplish the most, who create the most value, who are most respected in their fields, are not the people who are always available. They are the people who protect their focus time absolutely and deliver exceptional results because of it. You can be collaborative and available during specific times while being completely unavailable during your focus blocks. This is not antisocial. This is professional. It is respecting your own time and cognitive resources enough to use them effectively. The open office layout that dominates modern workplaces is possibly the worst environment ever designed for focus. These spaces were supposedly created to increase collaboration and creativity, but the research shows they actually decrease productivity, increase stress, and make deep work virtually impossible. If you work in an open office, you need to implement aggressive strategies to create focus despite the environment. Noise-canceling headphones are essential. Visible signals that you are not to be disturbed. Working from home or remote locations when possible during your most important work. Coming in early or staying late when the office is less populated. Finding conference rooms or quiet spaces for your deep work blocks. If you have any influence over your work environment, you should advocate loudly for policies that protect focus. Dedicated quiet zones. Time blocking systems where certain hours are interruption-free for everyone. The option to work remotely during deep work days. Cultural norms that respect focus time. Managers and leaders have enormous responsibility for the focus culture of their teams. If leaders send emails at all hours and expect immediate responses, they create a culture of constant availability that destroys everyone's focus. If leaders schedule frequent meetings and interruptions, they signal that responsiveness matters more than deep work. If leaders reward busy-looking activity over actual results, they incentivize shallow work patterns. The best leaders do the opposite. They model deep work by protecting their own focus time and being unavailable during those periods. They communicate asynchronously rather than expecting real-time responses. They measure output and impact rather than hours worked or responsiveness. They create explicit norms that protect focus time for everyone. Family relationships require similar boundary setting. If you have a family, You need to establish clear expectations about when you are available and when you are in focus mode. This is especially important if you work from home, where the boundaries between work and family time can easily blur. Your family needs to understand that when you are in your office with the door closed during work hours, you are not available for anything short of genuine emergency. This is not about loving them less or prioritizing work over family. It is about being fully present and productive during work time so you can be fully present with them during family time. Without these boundaries, you end up being partially available all the time, which means you never fully focus on work and never fully connect with family. Nobody wins in that scenario. Social media creates particularly insidious social pressure that destroys focus. The constant updates, likes, comments, and messages create an illusion of social connection while actually preventing real connection and destroying your ability to be present. The social validation mechanics of these platforms are specifically designed to keep you checking constantly. Every like triggers a small dopamine hit. Every comment creates a sense of social obligation to respond. Every update from others creates fear of missing out. You feel like you are being social and connected, but you are actually training your brain to be distracted and reactive. Real social connection requires sustained attention. Deep conversations require focus. Meaningful interactions require presence. When you are constantly fragmenting your attention across dozens of superficial digital interactions, you lose capacity for the sustained attention that real relationships require. The solution is not to become a hermit or abandon all social connection. It is to be intentional about when and how you engage socially. Have specific times for social interaction where you are fully present and engaged. Have other times where you are completely unavailable and focused on your most important work. Stop trying to be socially available all the time. The people who think they need constant social availability usually discover that almost nothing actually requires immediate response. The supposedly urgent social demands are mostly artificial pressure created by the platforms themselves. When you establish clear boundaries, most people adapt quickly, and your relationships often improve because the time you do spend with people is higher quality. Accountability relationships can dramatically improve focus if structured properly. This means having specific people who you report your focus goals to and who check on your progress. The key is that this accountability must be structured and scheduled, not constant. You might have a weekly check-in where you report what you accomplished during your deep work time. You might have an accountability partner who you meet with regularly to discuss focus challenges and solutions. What you do not want is constant checking in that becomes another source of interruption and distraction. The accountability serves to maintain motivation and consistency, not to monitor your activity constantly. Collaboration requires special attention because it is necessary for many types of work, but can be devastating to focus if not managed properly. The solution is to separate collaborative work from deep individual work rather than mixing them constantly. Have specific times for collaboration where you are fully engaged with others and working together in real time. Have other times for deep individual work where you are completely unavailable for collaboration. Many projects require both types of work. The mistake is thinking they need to happen simultaneously, or that you need to remain available for collaboration while doing individual work. Batch the collaborative elements into specific sessions, then do your individual work in protected focus blocks. Some people genuinely prefer working with others around, or find that social presence helps them stay accountable and focused. This is fine as long as the others are also focusing. Co-working arrangements where multiple people work on their individual projects in the same space can provide social presence without social interruption. The key is that everyone is focused on their own work, not chatting or interrupting each other. This is different from open offices where people are constantly interacting and interrupting. Your overall social environment, the culture of your workplace, the norms of your family, the expectations of your friends will either support focus or destroy it. You cannot build strong focus habits while surrounded by people and systems that constantly disrupt concentration. You need to actively shape your social environment to support focus, which sometimes means making difficult choices about where you work, who you spend time with, and what cultural norms you will accept or resist. The people who master focus almost always make these hard choices. They change jobs to escape toxic focus, destroying cultures. They set boundaries that some people find uncomfortable. They prioritize their most important work over social availability. They design their lives to support deep work rather than trying to fit focus into whatever social circumstances happen to exist. This is not antisocial or selfish. This is professional and necessary if you want to accomplish anything meaningful. Chapter 12. Advanced Focus Techniques for Complex Cognitive Work. Once you have mastered the fundamentals of focus, environmental design, routine building, and physical optimization, you are ready for advanced techniques that take your concentration to levels most people never experience. These are methods used by elite performers in cognitively demanding fields to maintain focus during extremely difficult mental work. The first advanced technique is what I call cognitive load mapping. This involves analyzing any complex task to identify which elements are most cognitively demanding and structuring your approach to match those demands to your cognitive capacity. Not all work is equally difficult. Some tasks require maximum concentration and creative problem solving. Others are more mechanical and can be done with less cognitive resources. Most people approach tasks randomly without considering cognitive load. They might do easy tasks when their focus is peak and save hard tasks for when they are tired. This is backwards and extremely inefficient. Cognitive load mapping means identifying the most demanding elements of your work and always scheduling those during your peak cognitive hours. The easier, more mechanical elements get scheduled for times when your focus capacity is reduced. This requires honest assessment of task difficulty. Many people overestimate how hard easy tasks are and underestimate how hard genuinely difficult tasks are. Complex analysis, creative problem solving, strategic thinking, and learning new difficult material are maximum cognitive load activities. Email, scheduling, routine communication, and simple formatting are low cognitive load activities. Structure your day so high-load tasks happen during protected focus time when you are fresh and low. Load tasks happen during the margins when focus capacity is reduced. The second advanced technique is deliberate problem loading. This leverages your brain's background processing capabilities to make breakthroughs on difficult problems. When you are working on a hard problem that you cannot immediately solve, instead of forcing it or switching to something else in frustration, you deliberately load the problem into your subconscious and step away. The process is specific. You spend focused time fully engaging with the problem, understanding all its dimensions, reviewing relevant information, and attempting solutions even if they do not work. You fully activate all the relevant neural networks. Then you deliberately stop working on it and do something completely different. Physical activity, a different type of work, or even sleep. Your subconscious brain continues working on the problem using different neural processes than conscious analysis. Solutions often emerge when you are not actively thinking about the problem. The key is the initial focused engagement. You cannot just vaguely think about a problem and expect your subconscious to solve it. You need intensive conscious engagement first to properly load the problem and activate relevant knowledge and neural networks. Many breakthrough insights come from this process. You struggle with a problem intensively, step away, and the solution appears while you are in the shower, or going for a walk, or waking up the next morning. This is not magic. This is your brain continuing to process the problem, using different cognitive systems that do not require conscious attention. The third advanced technique is what I call attention layering. This is the ability to maintain focus on a primary task while monitoring secondary information streams at a much lower level of attention. This is different from multitasking. You are not trying to fully focus on multiple things. You are fully focused on one thing while maintaining peripheral awareness of others. This technique is valuable when you need to stay focused on important work but cannot completely ignore other demands. For example, you might be fully focused on writing but maintain peripheral awareness of urgent messages that might require immediate response. The key is that the secondary attention is genuinely peripheral. You are not checking it constantly or letting it interrupt your primary focus. You have set up systems where only genuinely urgent items break through, and everything else waits. Attention layering requires training. You need to develop trust that your peripheral monitoring is sufficient and you do not need to actively check constantly. You need to set up reliable filtering systems so genuinely important items do surface while everything else is suppressed. Most people do this backwards. They give primary attention to secondary tasks like email and peripheral attention to their most important work. They check email constantly and try to do their deep work in between. This is exactly wrong. Your most important work gets your primary focused attention. Everything else gets peripheral monitoring at most. The fourth advanced technique is state management through environmental manipulation. Your focus capacity is not constant. It varies based on your physical and mental state. Advanced practitioners learn to manipulate their state to match work demands. This might mean using specific types of music to increase or decrease arousal levels depending on task demands. High-tempo music for routine tasks that benefit from increased energy. Ambient or no music for deep creative work that requires maximum cognitive capacity. It might mean using environmental changes to shift mental state, moving to different locations for different types of work, changing lighting or temperature, using scent or other sensory cues that you have associated with specific mental states. It might mean using brief physical or mental exercises to shift state, cold water exposure to increase alertness, specific breathing patterns to increase or decrease activation, brief meditation to clear mental clutter. The key is having a toolkit of state management techniques and knowing which techniques produce which effects for you personally. This requires experimentation and self-knowledge, but once developed, It gives you much more control over your focus capacity. The fifth advanced technique is focused learning acceleration. This applies specific focus principles to learning new complex material or skills more rapidly. The standard approach to learning is to consume information somewhat casually, maybe taking notes, maybe trying to remember key points. This produces slow, shallow learning that requires extensive repetition. Focused learning acceleration means bringing maximum concentration and specific techniques to learning sessions. You engage with new material in a highly focused state with no distractions. You actively test yourself on the material immediately rather than just reviewing. You space your learning sessions using optimal intervals for memory consolidation. You connect new information to existing knowledge structures consciously and deliberately. You teach or explain the material to solidify understanding. This approach can reduce the time required to master complex material by 50% or more compared to casual learning approaches. The time savings are dramatic, but more important is the quality of understanding achieved. The sixth advanced technique is creative focus protocols. Creative work requires focus, but a different type than analytical work. Creative work benefits from a more relaxed, open attentional state rather than the narrowly focused state optimal for analytical work. Creative focus protocols involve creating conditions that support creative cognition. This might mean working in less structured environments, allowing more mind-wandering and associative thinking, consuming diverse stimuli that might trigger unexpected connections, and giving yourself permission to explore tangents. The key is that this is still focused work, not distracted entertainment. You are deliberately maintaining an open, attentive state directed toward creative generation, not fragmenting your attention across unrelated activities. Many creative professionals alternate between tight analytical focus and open creative focus. They use tight focus to evaluate and refine ideas. They use open focus to generate new ideas and make unexpected connections. Knowing which mode you need for which type of work and being able to shift between them is an advanced skill. The seventh advanced technique is focus recovery acceleration. Even with excellent focus habits, you will occasionally have periods where your focus capacity is temporarily reduced due to stress, illness, life events, or just overwork. Advanced practitioners know how to recover focus capacity more quickly. This involves aggressive prioritization, where you temporarily reduce your workload to only the most essential items. It involves doubling down on physical optimization, especially sleep and exercise. It involves eliminating optional cognitive demands and sources of stress. It involves sometimes taking complete breaks from cognitively demanding work to allow full recovery. The mistake most people make is trying to push through periods of reduced capacity with willpower. This usually makes things worse and extends the recovery period. The advanced approach is recognizing reduced capacity early, immediately implementing recovery protocols, and accepting temporary reduced output in exchange for faster return to full capacity. These advanced techniques are not for beginners. You need solid fundamentals first. But once you have mastered basic focus skills, these advanced methods can take your cognitive performance to levels that seem superhuman to people operating with constant distraction and fragmented attention. Chapter 13. Building anti-fragile focus that grows stronger under pressure. Most people's focus is fragile. It requires perfect conditions to work. They need quiet environments, no interruptions, and everything to go according to plan. When conditions are not perfect, their focus collapses completely. This is an enormous vulnerability because real life rarely provides perfect conditions. The solution is building what I call anti-fragile focus. This is focus that not only survives imperfect conditions, but actually grows stronger through exposure to challenges and stressors. This is the difference between elite performers who thrive under pressure and average performers who fall apart when conditions get difficult. Anti-fragile focus is built through progressive exposure to challenges while maintaining concentration. You start with conditions that support focus easily. As your capacity grows, you deliberately introduce controlled challenges that make focus harder. Over time, you adapt, and what once would have destroyed your focus becomes manageable. The first element is building stress inoculation into your focus practice. This means deliberately practicing focus during controlled, stressful conditions. You might practice sustained concentration while physically uncomfortable, while time pressured, while in noisy or chaotic environments, or while managing competing demands. The key is that the stress is controlled and gradually increased. You are not throwing yourself into overwhelming situations that destroy focus. You are systematically expanding your capacity to maintain focus despite suboptimal conditions. This is similar to physical training, where you progressively lift heavier weights or run longer distances. The controlled stress creates adaptation. Your nervous system learns to maintain focus despite activation and challenge. The second element is developing what I call focus resilience. This is the ability to quickly recover focus after inevitable interruptions and distractions. You cannot prevent all interruptions. Life happens. Emergencies arise. Unexpected demands occur. Fragile focus falls apart after a single interruption and requires extensive time to rebuild. Anti-fragile focus can be interrupted and quickly restored. Focus resilience is trained through practice with deliberate interruptions. You create a focused state, deliberately interrupt yourself, then practice rapidly returning to focus. Over time, the recovery process becomes faster and smoother. You develop the skill of releasing the interruption and re-engaging with your primary task efficiently. The third element is building confidence through accumulated focus wins. Every successful focus session, every time you maintain concentration despite challenges, every time you recover quickly from distraction, you are building psychological evidence that you can focus effectively. This accumulated evidence creates confidence that makes future focus easier. Confidence reduces the anxiety and self-doubt that often interfere with concentration. When you know from extensive experience that you can focus, you do not waste energy worrying about whether you will be able to focus. You just do it. This confidence is built through consistent practice and honest tracking of your progress. Keep records of your focus sessions. Celebrate successful sessions. Learn from difficult sessions without harsh self-judgment. Over time, you build an identity as someone who can focus deeply and consistently. The fourth element is developing focus across multiple modalities. Fragile focus often depends on specific conditions. You can only focus with particular music, or in a particular location, or at a particular time of day. This creates vulnerability because you cannot always control these conditions. Anti-fragile focus can work across varied conditions. You practice focusing with different types of background sound, including silence. You practice focusing in different physical environments, You practice focusing at different times of day. This does not mean all conditions are equally good. You will still have optimal conditions that produce peak focus, but you develop the capacity to focus reasonably well across a range of conditions, which makes you much less vulnerable to environmental changes. The fifth element is building intensity variation capacity. Anti-fragile focus can operate at different intensity levels depending on what the task requires. Some work requires maximum intensity concentration. Other work requires sustained moderate focus. Being stuck at one intensity level creates problems. If you can only do maximum intensity, you burn out quickly. If you can only do moderate intensity, you cannot handle truly demanding cognitive work. Training intensity variation means practicing focus at deliberately different levels. Maximum intensity sprints, where you focus with complete concentration for shorter periods. Moderate intensity sessions, where you maintain focus for longer periods at sustainable intensity. Learning to match your focus intensity to task demands, rather than always operating at the same level, makes you much more versatile and sustainable. The sixth element is embracing challenging focus conditions as training opportunities. Most people avoid difficult focus conditions. They wait for perfect circumstances before attempting important work. Advanced practitioners do the opposite. They recognize that difficult conditions are valuable training opportunities. Working when you are slightly tired, in imperfect environments, with limited time, or under pressure builds focus capacity that easy conditions never develop. This does not mean deliberately creating unnecessary difficulty. It means recognizing when conditions are challenging and consciously using those situations to build focus strength rather than just wishing for better conditions. The seventh element is developing metacognitive awareness of your focus state. This is the ability to accurately assess your current focus capacity, recognize when your focus is beginning to degrade, and take appropriate action. Fragile focus operates on autopilot until it completely collapses. Anti-fragile focus includes constant awareness of focus quality and proactive management. You notice early warning signs that focus is declining. Maybe your mind is wandering more frequently, or you are rereading the same material multiple times, or you are finding yourself checking your phone more often. When you notice these signs, you can take corrective action before complete focus breakdown. This might mean taking a brief break, switching to less demanding work, or ending the session before you push into counterproductive fatigue. The eighth element is building emotional regulation that supports focus under pressure. High-pressure situations often trigger anxiety, frustration, or other emotions that destroy concentration. Anti-fragile focus includes the emotional regulation skills to maintain concentration despite emotional activation. This is trained through exposure to emotionally charged focus situations, combined with emotion regulation techniques like breathing, cognitive reframing, and emotional labeling. Over time, you develop the capacity to feel pressure without letting it interfere with focus. The pressure might even enhance focus by increasing motivation and attention without triggering the negative effects of anxiety. The final element is developing a growth mindset about focus capacity. Fragile focus comes with the belief that your concentration capacity is fixed. You either can focus or you cannot, and difficult situations prove you cannot. Anti-fragile focus comes with the understanding that focus capacity can always improve through proper training, and that challenges are opportunities for growth rather than proof of inadequacy. This mindset difference affects how you interpret difficult focus experiences. Someone with a fragile focus mindset interprets struggle as failure and feels discouraged. Someone with an anti-fragile focus mindset interprets the same struggle as training stimulus and feels encouraged by the opportunity to build capacity. Building anti-fragile focus is a long-term project. You cannot develop it overnight, but the investment pays enormous dividends because it makes you reliable and high-performing regardless of circumstances. While others fall apart when conditions are difficult, you maintain focus and produce results. This reliability becomes one of your most valuable professional and personal assets. Chapter 14. The compound effects of focus mastery over time. Everything I have taught you so far produces immediate benefits. Better focus today means more accomplished today. But the real transformation comes from compound effects over months, years, and decades. Most people dramatically underestimate how much sustained focus mastery will change their entire life trajectory. Let me show you exactly what compounds and why the long-term effects are so profound. The first compound effect is skills accumulation. When you can focus deeply and consistently, you learn faster and build skills more rapidly than people with fragmented attention. This might seem like a small advantage initially. You learn something in a month that takes others 3 months. But this advantage compounds over time. Over a year, you develop skills that others would need 3 years to build. Over a decade, you become world-class at things that others never master because they could not maintain the focus practice required. The skill gap between people who can focus deeply and people who cannot grows exponentially over time. Eventually, it becomes so large that it looks like a difference in talent when it is really just compound effects of sustained focus practice. The second compound effect is career advancement. In every field, the people who produce exceptional results through focused work get opportunities that others do not. They get promoted faster. They get invited to more interesting projects. They build reputations that create more opportunities. Each opportunity leads to more opportunities in a virtuous cycle. Someone with strong focus gets slightly better opportunities early in their career. They perform exceptionally in those opportunities because they can focus, which leads to even better opportunities. This compounds over a career until the gap between focus masters and average performers becomes enormous. The person who started with just slightly better focus ends up in a completely different career trajectory with dramatically different outcomes. The third compound effect is creative output. Creative work requires sustained focus to produce anything of significance. A few hours of deep focused work produces more creative output than weeks of scattered partial attention. Over a career, someone who can consistently focus on creative work will produce 10 times or even 100 times more creative output than someone with the same raw talent but without focus skills. This is why a small number of people produce the majority of valuable creative work in any field. It is not that they have 10 times more talent. It is that they can focus 10 times more effectively, and this compounds over thousands of hours. The fourth compound effect is problem-solving capacity. Complex problems require sustained focus to understand and solve. People who can focus deeply can tackle problems that completely overwhelm people with fragmented attention. As you solve complex problems, you build problem-solving skills that allow you to tackle even more difficult problems. This compounds into the ability to work on meaningful challenges that create tremendous value. The world desperately needs people who can focus on complex, important problems for extended periods. Most people cannot do this. If you develop this capacity, you become extremely valuable and you get to work on problems that are actually interesting and meaningful rather than just handling shallow reactive tasks. The fifth compound effect is relationship depth. Relationships require attention. Deep relationships require sustained focus and presence. When you can give people your full attention, when you can have conversations without constantly checking your phone, when you can be genuinely present, your relationships become dramatically deeper and more meaningful. Over time, this creates a network of deep, authentic relationships that provide support, opportunity, collaboration, and fulfillment. People who cannot focus build only shallow relationships because they cannot give anyone sustained attention. The sixth compound effect is learning accumulation. Everything you learn builds on previous learning. The more you know, the faster you can learn new related information. But this only works if you actually remember what you learn, which requires focused attention during learning. People who learn with fragmented attention retain very little. They might read hundreds of books, but remember almost nothing because they never fully focused on the material. People who learn with deep focus retain dramatically more. They build interconnected knowledge structures that accelerate all future learning. Over decades, this creates staggering differences in knowledge and understanding, even between people who consumed similar amounts of information. The seventh compound effect is decision-making quality. Focus allows you to think deeply about important decisions rather than making impulsive choices. Better decisions lead to better outcomes, which create more opportunities for good decisions. This compounds over a lifetime into dramatically different life trajectories. One person makes slightly better decisions consistently because they can focus and think clearly. After thousands of decisions over decades, their life looks completely different from someone who made slightly worse decisions consistently due to scattered thinking. The eighth compound effect is identity transformation. Every time you successfully focus, you are reinforcing an identity as someone who can focus. Every time you follow through on focus intentions, you are building self-trust. Over time, this creates a fundamental shift in how you see yourself and how you operate in the world. You transform from someone who wishes they could focus to someone who simply does focus. This identity shift changes everything because it affects every decision and every challenge you face. The ninth compound effect is time multiplication. Focus does not give you more time, but it dramatically changes what you can accomplish with the time you have. 2 hours of deep focused work often produces more value than 40 hours of scattered shallow work. Over a career, someone who consistently works in deep focus mode effectively has 5 times as much productive time as someone who works in scattered mode, even though they work the same number of hours. This time multiplication compounds with all the other effects to create outcomes that seem impossible to people operating without focus. The 10th compound effect is anti-fragility and resilience. Every challenge you navigate while maintaining focus builds your capacity to handle future challenges. Over time, you become extremely resilient and adaptable because you have extensive experience staying focused through difficult conditions. This resilience becomes increasingly valuable because life inevitably presents challenges. People without this resilience fall apart when things get difficult. People with compounded focus resilience actually perform better under pressure. The key insight about all these compound effects is that they are multiplicative, not additive. Each effect amplifies the others. Better skills create better opportunities, which allow more creative output, which builds stronger relationships, which accelerates learning, which improves decisions, which strengthens identity, which multiplies effective time, which builds more skills. This is an upward spiral that accelerates over time. The difference between someone who develops focus mastery at age 25 and maintains it versus someone who remains distracted is not just that the focused person accomplishes more. It is that they end up living in a completely different reality with opportunities, relationships, skills, and experiences that the distracted person cannot even imagine. This is not exaggeration. The long-term compound effects of focus are that dramatic. Every single day of focused work is an investment that pays returns for the rest of your life. Every single day of distracted, scattered attention is a compound loss that makes every future day harder. The trajectory you are on right now, focused or distracted, is determining what your life will look like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Small differences in focus capacity today become enormous differences in life outcomes over time. This is why focus mastery is not just another productivity technique. It is the foundational skill that determines the entire trajectory of your life. Chapter 15. Your focus revolution begins now. You have reached the end of this audiobook, but the beginning of your focus revolution. Everything you have learned means nothing unless you take action. Knowledge without implementation is just entertainment. The question is not whether you understand the importance of focus. The question is whether you will do what is necessary to transform your attention and unlock your full potential. Let me be direct with you about what happens next. You have two paths. The first path is to acknowledge that everything in this audiobook makes sense, agree that you should improve your focus, and then do nothing differently. You will return to the same distracted patterns that have been limiting you. You will check your phone constantly, work in fragmented attention mode, and wonder why you never accomplish your most important goals. Your life will continue on its current trajectory. The second path is to immediately take action on what you have learned. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are perfect. Right now, today, this very moment. You commit to the focus revolution and you begin implementing these principles before the motivation from this audiobook fades. Most people take the first path. They consume information and do nothing with it. They remain trapped in distraction and limited potential because they never translate knowledge into action. Do not be most people. The focus revolution requires specific, immediate actions. First, conduct a complete audit of your current attention patterns. For the next 3 days, track exactly how you spend your time and where your attention goes. Track every time you check your phone, every interruption, every task switch, every distracted moment. Be brutally honest. This audit will reveal the true scope of your distraction problem. Most people are shocked when they see the data on their actual behavior. Second, identify your peak focus hours and immediately block them in your calendar for deep work. Not available for meetings, not flexible, not negotiable. These hours are now protected time for your most important work. Third, choose one deep work session tomorrow morning. Decide exactly what you will work on. Prepare everything you need. Eliminate all potential distractions and execute a focused work session following the protocols you learned. Just one session to prove to yourself that you can do this. Fourth, implement immediate digital boundaries. Delete social media apps from your phone, or at minimum, move them somewhere that requires multiple steps to access. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Establish specific times when you will check email and messages rather than constant availability. Fifth, design your environment for focus. Clear your workspace, remove distraction triggers, set up focus cues that will signal deep work time. Do this today, not eventually. Sixth, commit to 1 month of consistent focus practice. Not perfect execution, but consistent effort. Daily focus sessions, even if short. Weekly tracking of progress, monthly review and adjustment. 1 month of real practice will produce noticeable results and build momentum. The resistance you feel right now is normal. Your brain is accustomed to distraction, and it will fight against change. You will have thoughts like, "This is too extreme," or "I cannot make these changes because of my circumstances," or "I will start next week when things are less busy." These thoughts are your distraction patterns trying to protect themselves. Recognize them for what they are and act anyway. The truth is, you will never have perfect circumstances. There will always be reasons to delay, to make exceptions, to compromise on your focus commitments. High performers do not wait for perfect circumstances. They create focus despite imperfect circumstances through commitment and systems. You might be thinking that the approach I have described is too extreme or unrealistic, that you cannot really eliminate digital distractions completely, that you cannot really protect your focus time absolutely, that you cannot really change ingrained habits. This resistance is precisely what keeps most people trapped in mediocrity. The people who transform their lives through focus mastery are not the people who find easy, comfortable ways to slightly improve. They are the people who recognize that dramatic change requires dramatic action, and they are willing to do what seems extreme to others. Consider what is at stake. Your current distraction patterns are not neutral. They are actively destroying your potential every single day. Every hour spent in shallow distraction is an hour you will never get back. Every day without deep focus is a day of unrealized potential. Every month of scattered attention is a month of lost progress toward your most important goals. The compound effects work in both directions. Sustained focus creates an upward spiral of growth and achievement. Sustained distraction creates a downward spiral of limited capacity and unrealized potential. The trajectory you are on right now is determining your future. The gap between who you are now and who you could become with focus mastery is probably larger than you imagine. Most people operate at a small fraction of their potential because they cannot focus. When you develop the ability to direct sustained attention toward what matters most, you discover capabilities you did not know you had. You solve problems that seemed impossible. You learn skills you thought were beyond you. You accomplish goals that seemed unrealistic. This is not about becoming superhuman. This is about becoming fully human by using your attention and consciousness the way they were designed to be used, rather than letting them be hijacked by technologies and environments that fragment them. The focus revolution is not a solo journey. Share what you are learning with others. Build accountability partnerships with people who are also committed to reclaiming their attention. Create focus, supporting environments in your workplace and home. Model deep work for others who are struggling with distraction. The culture of constant distraction that dominates modern life will not change on its own. It changes when individuals decide they will no longer accept it and they create alternatives. Every person who develops focus mastery and demonstrates what is possible helps shift the culture. Your focus revolution can inspire others to reclaim their own attention. The most important thing I can leave you with is this: focus mastery is not about perfection. It is about direction and consistency. You will have setbacks. You will have days where distraction wins. You will struggle with old patterns. This is all normal and expected. What matters is that you keep coming back to focus practices, that you treat each day as a new opportunity to practice, that you build consistency over time rather than expecting immediate perfect execution. The compound effects of focus accumulate from consistent imperfect practice over long periods, not from brief periods of perfect practice. Start today. Start right now. Choose one immediate action from this audiobook and do it before you do anything else. Maybe that action is putting your phone in another room. Maybe it is blocking time tomorrow for deep work. Maybe it is deleting a social media app. Maybe it is telling someone about your commitment to focus mastery so they can support and hold you accountable. Whatever the action is, take it now while you still feel motivated. Action creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence enables consistency. Consistency produces transformation. Your attention is your most valuable resource. It is the lens through which you experience life and the tool through which you shape your reality. For too long, it has been stolen, scattered, and exploited. The focus revolution is about taking it back. Welcome to the revolution. Your transformation begins now.